Welcome to Eye Opener. I'm your host, Michael Lewis. Since November 3rd, the U.S. election has been the focus of worldwide attention. From the various news reports that have emerged so far, it appears that President Trump is under pressure from at least four types of opposing forces. First, the domestic enemies of the United States. Second, the foreign enemies. Third, the insiders in the Republican Party. And fourth, people who are on the fence and staying silent, despite the battle of good and evil being played out right before them. These opposing forces seem simple enough, but if you delve into the details, you will discover a very complex web of relationships, especially concerning the first three, which have colluded and conspired with each other to form a large swamp in the United States. This swamp is corrupting the U.S. It is also creating an ecosystem in which some U.S. adversaries depend on to survive. If this swamp is eliminated, then the enemies of the United States, such as the Chinese Communist Party and Iran, will face disaster. As such, these forces are conspiring with each other to remove President Trump from power. They are desperate, as this is the essential to their survival. However, on President Trump's side, there is patriotic support from the vast numbers of American people, all levels of the government, institutions, and from within the military. Many people believe that he is the chosen one to clean up the corrupt, evil forces in humankind, and that God blesses the righteous. In addition, the U.S. president has immense power and influence. This is often seen in extraordinary times. Throughout history, we have examples such as President Lincoln or President Roosevelt during World War II. Therefore, President Trump is not to be underestimated. On Wednesday afternoon, December 2nd, attorneys Lin Wood and Sidney Powell held a rally and press conference in Georgia on the topic of Stop the Steal. In his remarks, Lin Wood touched upon this election battle's true nature and recommended people to read the Epoch Times.
Read the Epoch Times. They tell you the truth. This is the battle between good and evil. This is the battle between truth and lies.
At the conference, Attorney Lin Wood also mentioned that this, here in Georgia, was the beginning of something similar to the 1776 War of Independence to resist election theft and reclaim the power that belongs to the American people.
And America gave me the opportunity to succeed in my life. And that's why I love America. And that's why I'm going to fight for America. And that's why you're going to fight for America. This is our country. Don't let anybody take it away from us. It's 1776. This is our battle. This is our fight. This is for our freedom. 1776 is back. Send a message from Georgia, the battleground state of Georgia. The battle starts here today at Wills Park, in this land, in this place, with these people. We're going to take our country back again. It's 1776. God bless you and God bless America.
On December 1st, news came from President Trump that he would hold a rally in Georgia on Saturday, December 5th at 7 p.m. The main purpose of the rally is to gather support for the two Republican federal Senate candidates in the upcoming January runoff election. But President Trump will definitely talk about election fraud in Georgia. Yesterday in Georgia, Lin Wood added that he firmly believes that President Trump will be sworn in as president for a second term on January 20th. President Trump also tweeted recently that the only way Biden can get into the White House is if he can prove that the votes are legitimate. So the attitude from President Trump's team is now obvious, and that it is to confront the attack of the evil forces and fight to the end. One thing that these evil forces have in common is that they like to hide in the shadows, to conspire and deceive, and use unjust tactics to achieve what they desire. Let me give you three examples. The first is President Barack Obama. The second is CNN, and the last is the Chinese Communist Party. Someone dug out a video on November 30th of an interview with former U.S. President Barack Obama when he was asked if he wanted to be president for the third term. President Obama's answer was thought-provoking. Obama turned what he said in this interview into reality, achieving what he wanted, therefore confirming the suspicion the Republican Party had raised about him. When President Trump took office in 2017, he said that Obama had illegally wiretapped his transition team and was secretly working against President Trump. On December 1st, the leftist media outlet Vanity Fair also published an interview conducted this week with President Barack Obama. Most former U.S. presidents leave office with a low profile, rarely speaking publicly. However, Obama is the exception. He not only frequently campaigned for Biden, but in this interview, Obama gave directives to the Democratic Party. He asked them to give young voices a platform. The young people he mentioned were not just young people in general, but extreme leftists with socialist ideology. Obama specifically mentioned the Democratic Congress representative, AOC. Obama said that instead of talking policy, young people like AOC should be given more platforms to speak out. The way Obama spoke was preaching for the leftists. As we all know, AOC is one of the representatives of the extreme left in the House of Representatives. She is in fact a socialist. Obama speaks very matter of fact, but in reality, he's calling on these young socialists to take this chance to fight. In the US, some far leftists such as AOC are not sitting in Congress. Many are involved in looting and violence on the streets. They're Antifa, they're BLM. Many people may think that the Cultural Revolution, like Communist China, is a long way from the United States, but in fact, it's already begun here. In the past 4 years, the extreme leftists have been in the streets, tearing down statues of American pioneers. Now, currently, California is advocating the 1619 Project. This project is to break down America's traditions through school children's education. The premise of the 1619 Project is that the first African slaves were sold in Virginia in 1619, and that is the year that should be considered as the birth of the United States of America. It even stated that the United States was not a democracy until Black Americans made it one, that the Declaration of Independence of 1776 was a lie. Under this 1619 Project, the state of California and other school districts have already been using the 1619 Project curriculum to teach students in the classroom. In a recent article written by Qinglian He, an economist and sociologist visiting the United States, that the 2020 election was a carefully planned data coup. High-tech capital had replaced financial capital as the main intervention force. At the same time, the composition of the Democratic Party has changed significantly. It is a party with socially marginalized groups, a combination of tech and financial bigwigs, plus intellectuals, many of whom are socialists. This is not the same Democratic Party that used to speak for the working class. In other words, the Democratic Party is on its way to becoming the Communist Party of the United States. That's why the Democratic Party has become an anti-Trump socialist stronghold. On November 29th, Biden appointed a senior communications team for the so-called new administration, with Jen Psaki as his White House press secretary. Psaki was a spokesperson for former President Barack Obama and was also a White House aide during the Obama era. After the appointment, Matt Wolking, a spokesman for President Trump's re-election team, shared a photo on Twitter of Jen Psaki wearing a pink hat with a 5-pointed star and a hammer and sickle on it. She's accompanied by Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, flanked by former U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry. It was discovered that the hat was actually a gift exchanged between the United States and Russia at a meeting in Paris on January 2014. Kerry gave Lavrov 2 large Idaho potatoes from USA, and Lavrov's gift back was that hat. Russia had ended their communist regime, and yet they gifted this hat with the communist insignia to the U.S. representatives, which obviously had a humiliating connotation. However, either the U.S. representatives were completely indifferent and didn't know what it meant, which is a serious negligence on the part of President Obama's administration to pick this kind of person as a diplomat, or Jen Psaki wore the hat even though she knew what it was representing, showing her disregard for American dignity, as well as revealing her pursuit and acceptance of communist ideology. The American leftist media, however, did not report on these examples that were uncovered, as fair and honest media should. On the contrary, over the past 2 days, the leftist media has been found to be deliberately conspiring against President Trump. CNN represents one such leftist media. James O'Keefe, an independent investigative journalist for Project Veritas Action, has been secretly taping CNN's morning meetings for 2 months and has obtained first-hand evidence that CNN is conspiring to subvert President Trump's administration. Since December 1st, James O'Keefe has been making these recordings public, and the ones that have been made public include 2 main strategies. First, CNN's president and senior editors meet to discuss specific ways to force President Trump to step down, such as using the 9/11 bombing of the World Trade Center's Twin Towers as an example to threaten and coerce President Trump. The main intention was to force President Trump to concede to Biden as soon as possible. Some believe that the 9/11 attacks had something to do with the problematic handover between President George W. Bush and Al Gore in the 2000 election, where there was a dispute over Florida in the U.S. Supreme Court. Second, CNN reporter Jamie Gangel explained how to cover up election fraud in the conference. She said they couldn't give President Trump too much of a platform to say that he didn't recognize the election results. CNN is very upset at the exposure of its internal recordings. CNN spokesman Matt Dornick said CNN had contacted law enforcement to report the possible felony that James O'Keefe may have committed, but he did not say which agency the report was made to. Because the recordings revealed by James O'Keefe were of great significance and confirmed the conspiracy of the leftist media, President Trump also reposted them on Twitter. CNN says James O'Keefe is guilty of a felony, when in fact the recordings show that it is CNN that could be guilty of a felony for allegedly conspiring to overthrow the legitimate government of the United States and silence the current president. The people will not forget these acts of treason. President Trump is now pressuring Congress to revoke privileges for social media to remove information, as it is also suspected in silencing conservatives. The protection granted under the Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, CDA, of 1996 protects platforms and people who block and screen offensive material. But nowadays, social media has gone way beyond what people can tolerate, abusing Section 230 to silence voices of truth. In a tweet on the evening of December 1st, President Trump said Section 230, which is a liability shielding gift from the U.S. to big tech, the only companies in America that have it, corporate welfare, is a serious threat to our national security and election integrity. Our country can never be safe and secure if we allow it to stand. Therefore, if the very dangerous and unfair Section 230 is not completely terminated as part of the National Defense Authorization Act, I will be forced to unequivocally veto the bill when sent to the very beautiful Resolute desk. Take back America now. The National Defense Authorization Act specifies the annual budget and expenditures of the U.S. Department of Defense. President Trump wants this year's NDAA to include a repeal of Section 230 on national security grounds. From replacing the Secretary of Defense, firing Kissinger and other pro-communists in Washington, D.C., and demanding the U.S. companies and individuals not doing business with any of the Chinese military companies on the White House sanction list, to pardoning General Flynn and pushing for the repeal of Section 230, President Trump's administration, internal and external measures have been even more aggressive since the general election. Next, I'd like to discuss more of the Chinese Communist Party's reported involvement in the recent U.S. election fraud. To curb their access to U.S. investors, the White House is continuing to develop a blacklist of companies with Chinese military ties. All companies owned by or with a military background are likely to be on the blacklist. In mainland China, the military is integrated into civilian life. There is virtually no companies of any size that do not have a military background. According to Reuters, at least 89 other companies are currently on the list. There are many large companies like China's top chipmaker, SMIC, and national offshore oil and gas producer, CNOOC. According to the latest reports, even U.S. companies with investments in Chinese military-linked companies have been added to the list. Reuters reported on December 2nd, TTI Electronics, PTE Hong Kong Limited, a subsidiary of U.S.-based TTI Inc., a Berkshire Hathaway company, is on the draft of the White House's blacklist because of their ties to the Chinese military. After the news was exposed, TTI Inc. and its Hong Kong subsidiary denied any connection with the Chinese military and declared they are ready to fight for removal from the list once it is released by the White House. President Trump's administration continues to sanction Chinese military companies as the list expands to 89 companies in one go. This measure would certainly suffocate the CCP. Also, Attorney Linwood tweeted, promising to root out traitors who are accepting monies from the Chinese Communist Party, George Soros, or Bill Gates in order to manipulate the U.S. elections. In another tweet, Linwood said that when an election is manipulated by foreign countries working with American traitors, then American freedom is on the brink of extinction. If you care about freedom, take action. It's time for nonviolent civil disobedience movement. In a tweet last Sunday, November 29th, Linwood left us with 4 questions to ponder, one of which was color revolutions. One of the hallmarks of a color revolution is nonviolent civil disobedience. On November 30th, Linwood also shared a tweet from an executive order issued by President Trump on September 12, 2018, which states that the White House will rely on findings of intelligence agencies to impose sanctions on any foreign company or individual that interferes in a U.S. election, including any foreign powers that is directly or indirectly involved in interfering in a U.S. election. It can be said that President Trump already laid the groundwork in 2018 for current actions to be taken. A month has passed since the election, and new evidence of election fraud is still abound. With the involvement of foreign countries and American traders in this election, the damage is beyond comprehension. In Nevada, 40,000 people voted twice in the general election, and President Trump's team says they will file a lawsuit. In Pennsylvania, a U.S. Postal Service driver testified publicly that he transported 228,000 fraudulent ballots from New York State into Pennsylvania. The charge that out-of-state ballots, which are usually legally printed and usually locally, could not have entered Pennsylvania. This is a very alarming allegation. In Fulton County, Georgia, where Atlanta is located, the county's technicians were exposed for their suspicious behavior when, after a judge ordered machines for recounting to be impounded, they may have wiped those servers clean. Representative Barry Loudermilk said during a recount, 88% of the ballots were processed before a server crashed, taking all the backup data with it. But Secretary of State spokesman Gabriel Sterling refuted this claim, and Fulton County expects the recount to be done today at December 3rd. We will have to see if this holds true. That's it for today, my friends. Please like and share, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe, and I will see you next time.